Welcome to Kingdomize, the podcast, where we discuss how to see our lives and our world through a kingdom lens, how to infuse kingdom culture into our families, our workplaces, and our cities, as we all participate in the dream of Jesus to see his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Welcome back to Kingdomize, the podcast. This is going to be so fantastic. Welcome back. We are in our Solutionaries series. I'm going to be here with my good friend Ian Green, and our guest today is Clare Dalton. This will be fantastic. So Ian's known Clare for a while. I met Clare, maybe a couple of years ago when I was in their lovely city of Malvern, the hills, the 6 hills, the 7 hills of Malvern. Oh, it was glorious. It was glorious. And so we were there and spent some time together at the church, and Ian drove me around the area and we saw some cars. What was that car? Ian, what was that car we saw that you took to that car factory?
Morgan. It was a Morgan.
Oh, it was a Morgan. They were beautiful, lovely. And so we're here, as I said, we're in our Solutionary series. I thought I made this word up, but I didn't. I did some research and somebody made it up before me, but I'm okay with that. I still think it's brilliant. A solutionary, it's a revolutionary who solves real world problems. And that's what the gospel of the kingdom does. That's what Matthew 28 tells us to do, is we are to get people saved, but then we disciple the nations, we disciple cities, we disciple people into a flourishing lifestyle that Jesus wants them to have. And Clare Dalton exemplifies this incredibly. And so, Clare, we're really, really glad you're with us. Clare's the owner, the founder, the director of Lighthouse Family Centre, and she has worked with children for over 30 years. Clare, I wasn't even sure you were that old. 30 years old. But you told me you're almost 50. And apparently I get to say that because you wrote it to me. Clare says she's almost 50. She's a mother of 3, and she's an ADHD fun-loving lady. That is my favorite thing I've ever read out of a bio. I will now add that because I think I've got 2 H's in mine. I think I've got a double H in mine. So Clare, we are really glad you're with us. I'm so excited to let people hear your story today because it's so fantastic. So thanks for joining us, Clare.
Oh, you're welcome.
You added ADHD fun-loving lady to your bio, and I love it. So tell me, I mean, we don't want to get stuck there because with ADHD you can't get stuck anywhere, but I love that you added that. Tell me a bit about that.
Oh, because I struggled so much with growing up, of not fitting in, not knowing where I belonged, and find everything really just challenging. And I knew I wasn't quite right, as to say. And when I kind of learning through children, by working with the children, I realised that I was reflecting a lot of behaviours I was supporting these children with. And I didn't do it to get anything. It was just to have that sense of relief of, now I know why I found all those things a little bit challenging and life a little bit challenging. But it's my superpower. I couldn't have done the journey I've done today without being this crazy ADHD loving person. I absolutely love being different, but I just have this way. And when things get a little bit challenging, I go, that's okay, because that's part of who I am. My ADHD is who I am, but it doesn't define who I am. But I absolutely do love being a complete Jack Russell of never putting anything down, going around people's ankles until I actually get the results I want, and that's who I am today. And I absolutely take credit in that. And it gives me a real sense to support families when people are struggling, when they're, maybe getting a diagnosis for their child. And I say, would you use ADHD or autism to describe myself and my manager? And they'll say no. And I go, well, we both have ADHD or autism, and look where we are today. Doesn't mean that your child would never succeed, because here I am, a director of a business, and yeah, I do have a neurodivergent, label above my head, but it doesn't stop me from being Clare.
Love that. So good. Jack Russell, superpower. And so I just love it. And I just have to, let me just add this. People that say they're normal is way overrated. Whatever normal means, way overrated. I think I found out a few years ago that I have ADHD and OCD. So I keep changing what I'm obsessed about. Anyway, I didn't make that up. That's a comedian joke. I don't know where it came from. So, Ian, I'm going to let you just jump in here for a minute as well, because your relationship with Claire goes way back beyond mine. So why don't you just say a few words and then we'll jump into Claire's story.
Yeah, it's great. You're going to love Claire today. I've got to know her over the last probably 2 or 3 years. We both attend the same community of faith here in Malvern in the UK. Judith and myself, we went down to see the centre, and it was challenging. There was a lot of work to do to get that ship shaped. And Judith was down there this morning and she said, it is looking phenomenal. It is looking phenomenal. And so Claire has driven that forward. She's begged, borrowed, guilted. I don't think she's stolen anything. But anyway, she's managed to get all the equipment that she needs to make this family centre work. And when you hear what she's actually going to do, you're going to be absolutely levitating, because it is so unbelievably exciting. And so, Claire, it's been a pleasure to get to know you over the last few years, and we can hardly wait to hear your story. And they don't know what they're going to get, but we all know it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So, Claire, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a one long journey. I've done many challenges in my life, and this is one of them as well. It all came to me from a vision. God provided me with a dream in December of 2023. And in this dream, I was given a condition called mouth pearls, which I'd never even heard of. And I had the dream interpreted. And this guy, the gentleman who never met me before, I was on this course, and a prophecy course, and I just asked him, he interpreted dreams, and he did, and I gave him my dream, and he basically said, there is a promotion for you coming your way. And he said, but it's not a promotion actually for you, it's not a name promotion, it's not any way financially a promotion. What it is a promotion for your community, that you have a skill set, a gifting that's been given to you by the Lord to take something from here, and you bring it together and you make it fruitful. What he didn't know at that time is I was contemplating moving my existing limited company at the preschool, and I was looking for somewhere else where we could meet more needs of the family. But I was thinking, do I really want to do that? I'm almost 50. I might want to be winding down. And so when that was given, I was like, okay, that's the push I need. It really is the push I need to start this journey. And that was the beginning of the journey. And 2 years it's taken to this actual, point from that conception, that dream, to where we are today. And I have been met with every single hurdle that could be provided by a city council, a county council, planning committee, everything from anything you name it. It was put in my way. And I'm not a person who ever wanted to run a business. I never wanted to be responsible for people, for finances. And all of a sudden, I'm filling out grant applications, planning applications, and doing completely out of my depth, not knowing, I'm absolutely okay with running a childcare setting and supporting families, children and staff members. But I was completely out of my comfort zone. And it really has been a challenge. But thus being all said, through all of that, the Lord has provided every single step of the way, even when I thought, this ain't happening. It's time to stop pushing. It really is. Let that door close and just accept what you got. But no, we kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And the Lord spoke to me through dreams all throughout. And if it wasn't dreams, it was absolutely visions and experiences of times. So, providing his hand in all of it. So it really has been a challenge, but hopefully a successful one. I'm yet to tell you whether it's successful or not yet, because it's still an empty building. We're just with lots of nice things inside. But we have people signed up and families signed up. We did a launch event last Saturday, which was well attended by families past, present and future. And the blessing for me was the people from the community came and met who we were. And we were able to share that we're not just here to provide childcare, we're here to provide a need and a hope for the community. Because where we're sitting is in an area of deprivation. So there is a lot of poverty around us, literally on the front doorstep, and people who have lost direction in life and really need supporting to maybe carry them through some challenging times.
Claire, Look, we've chatted over some of the challenges that you've had. Maybe if you just highlight one or two, because there's been some remarkable miracles, right, in terms of breakthrough for you. And I think that would be encouraging for people listening to maybe hear one or two of them.
Sure. I think the biggest one was when it was really pushing was the fact that we applied for planning, and we were given some conditions on planning, and all of these things come with a real hefty price tag. And I knew we couldn't do anything until we met the first one, which was absolutely getting this planning permission done to get some conditions. And it's going to cost us about between £10,000 to £14,000 to get to that point. And I just thought, I just need to get into that building, because once I'm into the building, we can be creative. So I applied for grants, rejected, because a lot of people want to see accounts for the first year, which we obviously didn't have, because I had to change from a limited company to a CIC company. And I reached out to our social housing group who do give out grants, and they approved for one small one. And then I went, right, I'm going big and I'm going bold. I'm going to go for 10,000. So I put it in, and they were a bit hesitant, and they said, could we meet at the centre? Absolutely, they said. And I met them, and I kind of gave them the vision of what it would be, supporting, from young children right until, the elderly. And kind of left it at that, and we just kind of sat through, and nothing could be done until this was done. And I remember just opening up an email, and it says, we have approved your grant. And I just stood up and shouted out, praise you, Jesus. And then I just and then specifically just proceeded to cry for quite a while. And that was the beginning. And then we could put the words into motion. Then the next one that happened was I had to go through a whole Ofsted inspection, which is a grueling 5 to 6 hours, just grueling to see whether you are the right person, even though I'd done that before my previous setting. But because we changed from a limited company to a CIC, we had to go through it all again. I brought some milk for this inspector that come to do the inspection. And then I woke up 2 weeks later one morning and went, the milk is still in the fridge. Oh my goodness, it'll be cottage cheese. So I thought, I drove down to the centre to get this milk out before it turned to cottage cheese. And I turned into the close and I went, ooh, that looks a bit sparkly and clean, this piece of tarmac. Ooh, that looks a bit nice. And woe behold, that drop curb, what was part of our planning condition, was there, and it was completed. I put in the application and heard nothing more. I'd met with Ringway, which are the people that do all the groundwork, Worcester County Council, and I looked down and there's this brand new curb. Well, I got out the car and my ADHD kicked in, and I'm singing and I'm dancing and I'm praising Jesus, recording the car map so my staff can see. And the Lord had basically provided Worcester County Council to do the work, and they footed the bill, and that was an absolute miracle. And that was, then I knew that was giving me a sign just to keep going, because that was amazing, that I didn't have other than submit, and I've got this beautiful shiny, and they didn't just replace the drop curb for me, they did the whole of the road, and they did the paths down as well, so it all looks beautifully shiny and new. And that was absolutely phenomenal. It really was.
What about the car park? What about the miracle of the car park 2 weeks ago?
That car park, piece of tarmac, honestly, I wanted to kiss it today when it was absolutely completed. The absolute moment of joy. So in the part of our planning application and part of our drawings drawn up by the architect, so most planning permissions are taken place and granted by the planning officer. 90% of those, 10% you have to go to committee and go to our beautiful guild hall, our town hall, where other councillors get together and you put forward your case. I don't. It's put forward by the council. And they realised at that point that our drawings actually showed where some car parking places would be. Is a swing set owned by Worcester City Council this time. And it was put on the land historically about 20 plus years ago. And the owners of this building knew that it had been put there. And we didn't even think about it, didn't even see it until it came to this committee meeting. The night before this committee meeting was taking place, I had a dream from God, and it basically said, hold on to the railings. There are 2 tsunamis coming your way, but it's okay. Let them roll over you. Just hold on to the railings and it all will be well. I walked into it that morning and my business partner said to me, she said, have you seen the email? And I said, it doesn't matter what it says because God's already told me there's going to be 2 tsunamis today and all will be well. And he was right. There was two tsunamis that day and all was well. It didn't feel all well at the time. It really didn't. but where those swings were. So there was a few phases to this miracle. The first one was the council agreed to move the swing set. They chopped it off and replaced it with 2 new swing sets at their expenditure. Perfect, done. Then we were left with this rubberized soft stuff, which protects children if they fall off, which costs thousands of pounds to remove because of what it's made out of. So backwards and forwards with the email, why aren't you removing it? Blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. So that was what they agreed to, that one. That got removed. Then I was left with this piece of tarmac with great big gaps in it because it was dug deep, because it was elevated a little bit. Here we go again. Emails, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Let's get the local council involved, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Loads of emails. And then they're saying, basically, you got to pay for it. We're not doing any more for you. We've done this, we've done that. But you need to replace it, and you need to do it with our remit. We need it to go this much down. You need to use this size gravel. And I was like, what? No, I've got ADHD. You don't tell me no. I've got a profile of PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance. If you ask me to do it, I do the opposite. I was like, no, not happening. This is not happening. So 1,000,001 emails again. And then I was in the office here, and I was completely warfaring, praying in the office, backing up and down and really, really speaking in tongues. The next day, an email. Yep, the city council are going to pay for the tarmac to be replaced. And it was. So I now have a beautiful piece of tarmac out there, which would have cost £7,000. It's not even that big. And it has some lovely car parking spaces painted on it now. And it was all paid by God's bill. It was this was always his provision. It was his vision. And he gave me the provision every step, even though at the last minute it was literally like, Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve, let's get the last things together. But he did it, pulled it out of the bag. And that was the last hurdle in our planning condition, was that piece out there. So now all conditions have been signed off. An absolute miracle and an answer to prayer. I mean, that is just one of them. There are many more, but that piece of tarmac is absolutely one of the biggest hurdles we faced.
Claire, that's amazing. I think you have now raised the bar for somebody excited about tarmac. Of all the people I've ever met, you have now raised the bar of the most excited. And for those that are not from the UK, it's pavement. It's parking spaces. But you're not excited about parking spaces because you're excited about what's going to happen. The people are going to park there. So tell us about the vision of the Lighthouse Family Centre. Tell us about the vision. What's the point? Because you had said you were already doing daycare, but then you said daycare to seniors. So what is the Lighthouse Family Centre going to be?
Okay, so our slogan is a beacon of hope for the community. I literally, when we were going to come here under our previous name, which was Angel Hands Childcare, God said to me, he said, you're narrowing your margins too much. How are people going to know to come here if we're, 65? How are we going to know to come here if I'm an 18-year-old or a 14-year-old? And so I kind of I was going along, and it needs to be somewhere where I can see a beacon, a hope. Where can we go to be full of hope by hopeful people? And the conception of Lighthouse Family Centre came from Wren Collective. There was one of their songs that I used to absolutely really didn't enjoy doing when I did children's youth group work. We used to sing it and go for the motions. But now it has a whole new meaning to it. Absolutely. And what I knew is it takes a village to raise a child. And if you haven't got a village, how can you raise a child? We've got some parents here with really, we've had some poor parenting themselves. And sometimes they're just repeating that generational cycle. So I knew we needed to be that village. So if you were to come to us with a newborn baby and say they're not sleeping at night, that we open our doors and say, come on in, have a cup of tea, let's talk. Have you tried this? The signposting. God specifically said to me, he says, you don't need to do it all. You've got to be the vessel, and you've just got to have the provision. We've got the building, and I've got, passionate people who want to make a difference, but I'm not going to do it all. I know that because I'll just go into burnout. But what we want is to make people have a beacon. So when people are talking on the streets or meeting other people and they say, well, have you tried the family centre? I went there and they gave me some advice on sleeping. That was starting with our younger ones. We're doing stay and play sessions for children, including children who are identified with additional needs, because that can be a really lonely journey. We're doing it for children who are also not in education. We've got a lot of children in our area who are not in education due to their needs, special educational needs, or just can't cope with our school system, or are home educated. I know a lot of children who are educated at home miss out on those social experiences. Then we wanted to integrate our older generations. So we're having integrations with our older generations where it's called tea at 2. You're going to come along for a cup of tea at 2 and maybe just do some arts and crafts, but you're going to do it with the little people, because little people hold nothing back. They tell you at face value. They are childlike, they just want to, they don't really mind what they say. If they want a book read, they'll go up to somebody and go, read this book to me, and they'll tell you if you're not colouring it in right, And I've seen, people become alive by those encounters of being a younger person with an older person from an older person in the generation of older people. We want to ignite that love that Jesus showed for everybody. There is no barrier to come into this place. We are going to offer youth, and we are working with other churches within Worcester to open that, because I know that youth are going to be challenging. And I'm not doing it without the backing of a church. There was no way, because, we just know. And they need Jesus more than anyone right now. They really do. So we're going to be doing that. But we're not going to do this too quickly, because we've got to walk before we can run. Because if we do it too quickly, we'll burn out. We won't get it right. We're going to start with the childcare side of things, because we know how to do that. We'll start with a stay in place, and in about 8 weeks' time, and just start building up. And then hopefully people will get to know that when they come in here, they feel a sense of something different. And then what I want them to do is ask me the question, why did you do this, Claire? Why? Because it's not been easy. And then I can reveal that, Jesus is my love and my light, and where my strength comes from. This is why I do it. So I can meet people like you and share my love for him that he's shown me. And that's available to you too, and this is proof of it, So we really are going to be from cradle to the grave, but it will take time. It will take time. I know it will. We're not going to rush into it. But just be known for that beacon of hope within the community. It was lovely at the open day to meet people and meet young people. And the one young girl I spoke to, she won this raffle prize, and she was so made up that she'd won this raffle prize donated by a Christian. And in it was a Pandora bracelet, which is quite expensive and quite what young people want to have. And I was like, you have been so blessed. And she went, I just love it here. She said, I love it here. We were never allowed to bounce the ball off the wall before. I was like, whoa. And now, she says, well, now we're allowed to touch the walls. I mean, something as simple as that. And I just go out when they're young. They've been here over the summer. They have been drawn on my walls and things like that. But, it is what it is. They're youngsters. And I just go out and say, hi, how are you? They know. And I just say to them, if there's anything you need while I'm here, just knock on the door. And just open that dialogue, just to get them to know that, I'm on their side, but for the right reasons. I don't want to tolerate anything that's not purposeful or anything that's kind, really. So if I see them drawn on the wall, I'm going to give them a sponge, and that's the thing. But if they're being kind, I've got a tyre, a massive tyre off a tractor. Thing weighs a ton. And I said, let's see how long it can stay here for, to see whether we can leave anything outside. Well, the tyre is on the park at the moment. It's been rolled around. And I just said to them yesterday, play with the tyre, but when you finish today, can you please put it back behind the wall? Well, this young lad, he wheeled it round. He wheeled round a trolley, and he wheeled round 2 pallets for me as well, and tidied them back up again. I was just like that. Thank you. And that's so simple, but yet it meant a lot to me. And also, I don't know why he did it. He did it because I asked the group of them, and it wasn't specific. I didn't point him out. There was a whole group of them together. And if we can start with those little positive movements, then who knows what we can create while we're here.
I love what you said about getting to your why. Solutionaries understand that they need to be active. And if they're active, it will bring questions out of people like, why are you doing this? That is such a great way. We found the same thing locally here, that we just decided to do things in our city, and people asked why. And we always had our answer was, we want to show you the love of God in a practical way. That was always our answer. And then we'd see where it went from there. And so I love how you said that. I know some of your why is your personal background. And I think it's so much part of this story, what brought you here today. Like, you've already talked about ADHD, and you've got some challenges there. When you and I talked personally, and you sent it in your notes, so I'm going to bring it up. You talked about the pits of despair. Well, I'm looking at you, and you're happy, smiley Claire. Now you're in this, it was going to rhyme, so I had to stop myself. Happy, Smiley Claire from the pits of despair. Sorry. Can you share a little bit about, because that's part of your why. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course I can. Absolutely. So I was brought up by my mum and my dad, and I have a younger brother. My mum and dad were not Christians at all. Though I did get taken to Sunday school, and my mum suffered with mental health, and she had a really bad postnatal depression when my brother was born. And I got shipped off with my younger brother to my grandparents in Weymouth, which was about 3.5 hours away from where we lived, while my mum was taken into what would be called a psychiatric unit, I guess now. So, a lot of abandonment issues is risen from that, that sense of not being enough. Was it me? I loved my dad. My dad's no longer with me. I adored him. He had a way of speaking to me and seeing the world. And I never really knew what love was. I guess my mum and dad loved me. They did. They gave me everything I ever need, but I was a bit of a spoilt brat. If I didn't get what I wanted, I screamed and I shout and I stamp my feet. My mum couldn't cope with that. My mum never cope with negative feelings. So if I was displaying those, she would do her best to make them go away. So give her what she wanted. Anything like that, So I never got to sit in difficult moments, even though difficult moments were right in front of me, which then led as I got older, not really knowing who I was. I always wanted to be, a little bit smarter, a little bit taller, a little bit prettier. I wanted to be the it gang. I wanted to be known for something. I just didn't know. I was never good at anything enough to be the high of anything else. And that led to us growing up, just not making the right choices, the wrong crowd, getting involved with all the things that you wouldn't want your teenagers to get involved in. Those toxic things of drink, drugs and alcohol, all those kind of things that defined that rebellion within me, that I chose those. And it wasn't until things got really challenging, and my parents did give me everything I wanted, and I grew up, I had children, still that void within me, nothing could fulfill it. I was still chasing, and it overcame me, and I got to a really bad place where I just didn't even want to be here. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And all the love and all the money that my husband and my children could give me was still not enough, and I was destroying everything in my path. But like you said, Brian, anyone looking in on me now would never think that I've been through those things. And at the time, I could put on such a mask. I could pick up so many different masks. You didn't see it. You never saw it. It wasn't until I was behind the closed doors you really saw those challenges. And, and when I was really there, it was not a good place to be, and I've seen those gates of hell. I've seen the gates of insanity, and it was either basically go under the ground and never come back again, or get locked up, or seek a different way. And, I saw a different way. It was like get on your hands and knees and ask for help, and which is what I did. It took some time to convince me because, I don't know, what was this God doing, all this, but I couldn't argue with a miracle that was looking back at me in the mirror. I am that miracle because, as you say, I'm not that person today. And I have to remember that gratitude that I have been restored from the ground upwards. And this is and I was like, this, I can't argue with it. This is tangible. I'm living it. I'm living proof. I see it day in, day out. And as I got well, my family got well. My husband got well. My kids got well. My mum got well. I was able to accept who I was. And I now can look in the mirror at that person and go, yeah, you're all right, kid. Yeah, there are days that you don't do everything right. I still speed. I swear, I still overbuy. I overeat. I'm not perfect by any way, shape or means. But I do know where my strength comes from. I do remain grateful. And I do remain completely open to helping other people. And like you said, that is where the conception of Lighthouse Family Centre is coming from, because I know where, and when I was there, was complete pits, how I became into the person I am today. And it's free. It's open to everybody. I'm a street pastor on the streets of Worcester. As part of my gratitude is to give back to other people, is to serve. And I have conversations with people who, no longer want to be here, and I can say, I was once that person too. Give it 3 months. Give yourself 3 months with the big JC, right? See how it goes. You can pick up all your rubbish. Your bags are right here. You can pick them back up. But just give it 3 months and see how it goes, because you don't know unless you knock it. You try it. Stop knocking it. Try it. You've got to really want to give it a try. But that has to come from you. It doesn't matter what people tell you to do. Like I say, I've got a PDA profile, which is that pathological demand avoidance. So if someone said to me, you go to church, try Jesus Christ, he'll sort you out. I'll be like, no chance, not on your Nelly. And it wasn't until I said, I'm going to try it. I actually am going to try this, and which I did, and it led to my baptism, and, I am on complete fire now for the person who can restore all, Jesus Christ, who can. I've just been at big church festival, with 35,000 other people worshipping. And out of that 35,000 people, 20,000 were people aged from the age of 18 to 25. That quiet revival we're talking about is stop being quiet, I say, and start being loud. Be loud, because, there are young people who are hungry. Unfortunately, those young people aren't in my family yet, but they see where my strength comes from, and I do believe that in Jesus' time and not in my time, I'm impatient. I want it today. He wanted it yesterday. But everything takes its time, and I need to remember that. And I'm never, ever going to forget the gratitude that, I have for the life I have today now, and which is why I want to serve this community, other people. And it's not just even them, it's also the staff, I talk to them about, the struggles that I've had, and where I am today. My best friend was having a real bad point. And I said, where my strength comes from. She said, yeah, but you've got God. And I went, yeah, and he is available to you too. He's available for everybody. It's not an exclusive club. You don't need to be part of the clubhouse to get in, or, the country club. He's here for us all, and he's patient, and that's the one thing he's taught me as well, is patience and tolerance. Like I said, I'm a person with no patience. Now, all of a sudden, I have this patience. It doesn't stop frustrations, but it does give me patience. And it's so good to be able to help other people see what's available to them. It doesn't matter where you are and who you are and what you've done. All those sins can be forgiven once you give your life to Jesus.
Yeah.
Claire, that's absolutely blinking breathtaking. I mean, everybody has a journey. Your journey is absolutely unique. It's inspiring. Even thinking where you come from to where you've arrived today, that is absolutely ballistic. And probably like us all, I think we all refer to people on the journey, on the way. None of us have arrived, self-made. We've been inspired, we've been encouraged, we've been affirmed by other people. I mean, when you kind of reflect in terms of, okay, we're on about one project here, the Family Lighthouse, but you've had other hurdles that you've had to overcome, and by the grace of God, you've done that, which is absolutely brilliant. As you kind of reflect a little bit, who would you say are the people in your life that inspired you to keep going when you kind of didn't want to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got a dear friend called Lydia Repton. So when I was at my previous church that I'm at now, we worked together. And before we worked together, when I was kind of on a start of my journey, I used to go to a running group run by Christians at the local church, walking distance from me. And then the minister at the time then started to join. And the one time he just said to me, "What if you have more questions?" He says, "We can meet for coffee." And I went, "Yeah, okay then." And then we met there. And I just remember seeing her enthusiasm and just jumping up and down. Like, she was like, come join us. Like me, bouncy, happy. And I remember thinking, man, I like what she's got. Lydia's been my prayer warrior for all of this. I get voice notes. She prays. I only have to go, such and such, praying now in the name of Jesus. And that's it. She is there. She has absolutely been the person waving my banner. She gets me, she understands me, and she just keeps the fire in my belly ignited, and that is testimony to not just to our friendship, but to also her love of Jesus. And she shows it, she wears him on her sleeve, on her forehead, everywhere. And and that is a real testimony. She's been a great supporter to me, she's been a real good friend. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and I've been introduced to Lydia. I think you maybe introduced me to her, and she's a fantastic person and got a great prophetic edge on her. Fantastic. I mean, when you think, sometimes when you've been through the depths of despair, and I think the language we've used earlier in this podcast was in the pit of despair, where everything is falling apart and you can't see a way forward. But you've obviously come through that. I mean, what makes you optimistic about the future, Claire?
you can't deny the miracles that have happened. You can't argue with it. It's you can't. You can't argue with the miracles that have happened for myself personally. You can't argue with the miracles that have happened for this place. So I know that, there's still going to be valleys, absolutely. And this does not last forever. This too shall pass, so those difficult moments will pass. But so will the good times, these aren't meant to last forever. So the highs and lows will come. If I keep close to my father by my side and keep that open dialogue that just looks like talking, in the conversations in the car. I now have my own office to stand in and pray and worship. It gives me hope, so that when those first people start to walk through the door, and I already know that some people already need help, not necessarily they've declared anything, but just by the amount of emails from needy people, this, question that, they just need support more to have belief in themselves. And hopefully we can provide a little bit of that. So absolutely no, this is not going to come without any challenge. There've been lots of people involved, and other people want to have the gratitude too of being part of it. As long as I remember who this is for and remain humble in this all, then hopefully it will still be happening and it'll still be here. The legacy will still be here. I don't want to be here forever. I do not want to be changing nappies or hoovering or forever. I want to put my feet up at some point. I want to have a goat. I want to farm with some goats, and I want an Arga oven. I want to have these certain things, just to enjoy, and you don't know what's around the corner. My dad was 65 when he passed away. And that's only going to be, that's only 16 years off me now. That's nothing, is it? And if I only, so it just shows me that be grateful for every single day. Look for the positives in every day, and look where you saw the Lord in every single day. Give your thanks to him. And when you put your head on your pillow and just go, thank you for the day that I had. And please, may I be able to do it all again for your glory. It's keeping it simple. Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing down for me was letting go of the control, is putting down the reins and saying, you've got this. I believe you've got this. I trust in you. You carried me this far. You carried me through all these events. Why would you stop now? I read something at the weekend, and it was saying something about, if I make all the wild flowers, which are technically weeds, beautiful and grow, think how much I pour into you when I created you to be here. So, when I think of it like that, I think what's been poured into me, and this is just the beginning. I know there's more available. So the more I become open to him, the more he can pour, the more I can see, the more I can do, the more I can share.
No, Claire, there's a lot of gold there. Honestly, there's a lot of gold there. I mean, the gold I'm picking up from what you're saying, whatever season we're in, it's a season. It doesn't last forever. So whether it's a great season, then we go into another season. Whether it's a difficult season, it doesn't last forever. Sometimes when we're in a difficult season, we think, I'm never going to, but that's not true. We do get out of it. We do move on. We do change. And I mean, I think as well, the whole underrated attitude for gratefulness is a tremendous life source for anybody doing challenging or difficult things, is just to be able to say thank you. I mean, we can all moan, complain, we can talk about what we don't have, what we should have had, what we lost, and whatever, right? But the moment you change gear into gratefulness, suddenly the world becomes a different world. You become a different, and that's gold. I mean, those that are listening, you need to take that. That's absolute gold. That attitude, that action, get out of your mouth, being grateful for what we do have. Because, in our world, we're almost promoted to compare ourselves with those up. We never compare ourselves to those down, right? We're always looking up, say, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that car, I don't live in that part of town, I don't have that kind of husband, I don't have that kind of wife, I don't have those kind of children. And we're all the time looking up. But when we start to look down, we realize, wow, there's a lot of fantastic things in my life, and I just need to be Beautiful. Loved that tremendously.
Yeah, really good, Claire. And I think your story is so inspiring because it shouldn't have worked for you. Like, as Ian said, like, you didn't have it all laid before you. So I want you to speak to people listening today about getting off the back of their laps to just do something. Maybe you don't have all the answers, or even if they do or have the stuff, like, it's clear that you were inspired by God speaking to your life. He brought you to the pit. He keeps inspiring you. You keep choosing gratitude. Just speak to somebody that maybe has an idea, or maybe God gave them a dream, but they're sitting on it. Just speak to somebody today about what they need to do next.
Yeah, I think if you've got something yearning inside, it's not like that. It's a different yearning. It's not like, I could really use a chocolate bar right now. It's different. It starts to consume you. You're thinking about it in the shower. You're thinking about it in the morning. You're thinking about it when you go into bed, and you're thinking, all right, God, you really are pushing this for me. And then I started looking for the visions and the signs, and then it was just like, yeah, he really is there. I mean, there was a time when myself and Lucy, we'd got so far, we'd been given that £14,000, so we knew we could do it, but we were still sat on the fence, sat on the other side. And I drew a picture for Lucy that morning. I said, look, we have got to make a decision. We need to sign this tenancy agreement. We have to do this to make this official. And we are here. And I just drew a picture, and it was literally just saying, we've got to go over the fence, and we need to make this decision by Friday, whenever this was. And I said this to her. And then I was in the garden, and I'm not always hands-on with the children. And I was with this little girl who doesn't say a lot. And she said my name, and she pointed to this bumblebee. And I saw this bumblebee. And God said to me, he said, see that? That's not meant to fly. But look, I made it fly. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And he was just like, look, see that? Me? I wasn't meant to fly. Look where you are now. And it was like, just take the leap over the fence. And I'm watching this bee, and it's trying to find all the knot holes in this fence to push through, rather than just go over the top. And I remember thinking, it could fly. Just pick up yourself and fly. It's hovering at this point, and get over the fence. And Jesus went to me, went, yeah, and listen to your own words. And I was like, and I just remember shouting out, Lucy, it's a sign. It's a sign. She's not Christian. But I explain it to her, and I say, this is what God's done. We have to sign that tenancy agreement. So I think for anybody who's got that sort of idea of wanting to start something, is seek God. If you keep pushing it on your heart with the signs, you're waking up thinking about it. Ask for prayer. Reach out to other people, because you haven't got to do this on your own. Yes, you're doing it with Jesus, and you're doing it with our Father, but there are other people who you can connect with who will give you support. You guys stepped in when I didn't quite know what to do about the business. You were an answer to prayer, You taught me stuff. God will provide you ways. You've just got to keep that door a little bit open and keep pushing, even through the challenges. If it's of God, those doors will open, even if they're really, really heavy. They will push open. But create a community for you of like-minded people. And they don't even have to be Christians. They just have to be like-minded people who have a heart for what you're doing and believe in you. If they don't believe in God, they'll believe in you, and you believe in God. And that's good enough for me, because I am his vessel. And they see that. And then maybe one day they might say, actually, I want what you've got, and just keep being that person, the Jesus with skin on, to be that person, to be the pearl, the aggravation that needs to create something beautiful, just like that dream. So I would say create your community around you, go to your church, and ask other people. Just be brave, be bold. One of my dads used to say to me, I was a quiet, shy child, believe it or not. And my dad used to say to me, go and ask questions. I'd be like, no. And he used to say to me, Claire, what's the worst that can happen? And it would be like, they say no. And that was it. I was never taught that kind of rejection. I couldn't do it because I didn't probably want to be rejected. And now it's okay. I accept that, because there'll be somebody else. That wasn't the other person. But God will provide what I need. And for that person, anybody who's thinking about it, he will provide. If it's of him, he will provide everything you need. Don't be blinkered by not noticing certain things. Have your eyes and your ears and all your senses open to how he can communicate with you, and just look for it and just seek it through prayer. If this is of you, Lord, where shall I be looking? was that you, Lord? And you feel it. It's a whole feeling. It's more than that of enjoying that chocolate bar. So when you consume him, you consume his word and his knowledge of it fulfills every fiber inside of you. It's like eating the best chocolate bar in the whole wide world, and there's no calories in it.
You're awesome.
Yeah, so good, Claire. How can people get a hold of you or see what you're doing? What's your website? How do they get to your website?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook. So Lighthouse Family Centre, just Google it in Facebook. We're also on Instagram, which I take no credit for. I can pass that down to my younger staff members because I'm too old for Instagram. And our website is lighthousefamilycentre.com. Just Google us. We're based in Worcester, England. But if anybody wants to reach out, pick up the email address off there and reach out to me if they feel they have something they want to share or just run a question through. I'm happy to take them all because that is a way of serving. And if it's there where you see that connection, you need your people around you to connect with. I'm more than happy because it blesses me. It makes my heart grow closer to Jesus. And it makes me feel good, like serving a purpose to help other people. That people were there for me and let that be returned to.
We just want to thank you, Claire. Your story's amazing. And we just got a tip of the iceberg today with that. So I want to encourage people as well that are listening to reach out to Claire. Claire, I told you a few months ago that people are going to be booking you to speak. Everyone needs to hear your story, not just because of what's happened, but because of who you are and how you're walking it out. You're so real. And it's okay to be a bumblebee, right? It's okay. So while we're on the past here, let me just say that the message that Claire said about us helping her, we have a program we've talked about before here called Kingdomize Your Business. So Claire was one of our participants a few months ago, and incredible having her there. And so hopefully we helped inspire a little bit and give some insight on how to move forward. And if that's something that might help you as well, then get a hold of us. We've got a course going right now, but we'll let you know when the next one starts. Besides that, we just want to thank you for listening. Share this with somebody. There's somebody that needs to hear this story today. You've heard it. Don't keep it. Don't be so selfish. Don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with somebody. Share the link. Share the post. Somebody needs to hear this, and it will inspire them at one part of their journey to move forward, keep moving forward, keep being grateful, keep listening to God and then doing what he says, because that's what a solutionary is. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Kingdomize, the podcast.
Thanks for joining us today on Kingdomize, the podcast. Let's keep the discussion going throughout the week on our socials or on our website, kingdomizeglobal.com. Contact us today to see how we can walk together to see more of God's kingdom in your city as it is in heaven.